WMNation.com.
Our guest is here. Let's see. Is this Allyson on the phone?
Yes, it is, Matt. Hi, nice talking to you.
Hey, I can't say your name all of a sudden. Allyson Koplin from Dumb and Busted, the Dumb and Busted podcast. Am I saying your last name correctly? Is it Koplin or Koplin?
Koplin.
It is Koplin. That's what I thought. Okay, and you're calling all the way from Portland, Oregon, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Is it Oregon or Oregon? Because I grew up saying Oregon, and then I've been corrected in recent years that it's actually Oregon.
Yeah, I think everyone outside of Oregon says Oregon.
Oh, okay. Right.
There's like a running joke here that no one who lives in Portland is actually from Portland, so everyone has to learn that lesson at some point when they move here.
Oh, okay. Well, good. So, so I've been checking out the podcast, and it's, what's great about it is, it's true crime, as they say, and there are other shows that tackle that, but the way you do it, with so much humor, it's true crime, but it's hilarious. And
thank you so much.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I even commented online. I said something about it's compulsively listenable. You listen to one, and it's like you can kind of you want to listen to the next one. You can kind of binge listen, and really, really great stuff. And you've got what is it, 38 episodes so far?
Yeah. So we put out 39 on Thursday. So we have a good backlog for people to listen to if they'd like at this point.
Yeah. And they're timeless. It's not like because obviously the different obviously I'm sure some of these stories that you tackle on the show are some of them probably happened years ago, some might be more recent, but it's really interesting. So so it's been almost a year. So have you been doing these steadily every week?
Yeah, so we're at about almost 8 months now, and basically Hannah and I, we'd been friends, best friends for a while, and had always talked about doing a podcast. And we finally, both of us loved true crime for a long time, but we wanted it to be something that was a really funny podcast, just because that's kind of our dynamic. And true crime doesn't always necessarily lend itself to being funny.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's not really appropriate to be funny in a lot of those circumstances. So we had to really find things that sort of stood out as being especially bizarre or especially stupid. And that way we could, have a good time with it.
Yeah. You brought up sometimes it's not appropriate to be funny, although, there are some of these stories that you tackle on the show. It's kind of, and you're in comedy, so this is something you have to deal with regardless. I'm sure there are there's different parameters. Let me put it that way, or barometers rather. I think in my mind I combined parameters with barometers, and it came out barometers. But I do that sometimes. I combine these words. But in terms of what individuals think is funny, especially in these politically correct times, but do you and your co-host ever have to kind of make a judgment call? Is it obvious which ones are okay to do and which ones aren't, or do you have to kind of talk it out like I don't know if this one's okay, or what goes into making those decisions?
Yeah, to be honest, we definitely had some learning curve episodes, where it was like we obviously decided all together, like nothing with kids. We had earlier on, we do have some episodes where some bad stuff happened to kids, and it's just most of the time it's us kind of being like, yeah, that's really terrible. Yeah, that's awful. And then we come to the end of the episode and it was just 60 minutes of us being like, oh God, that was bad, So yeah, we kind of came to that choice early on, like, nothing bad happening to kids. And, a lot of sex crimes and stuff. Nope. Nothing really with that either. So, we kind of do, tend towards the more heisty things, or just we do have, definitely a lot of murder stuff, but we're not really making jokes about how murder is funny. It's more just focused on how the people are particularly bizarre in the story or that kind of thing.
Right, right. Have you ever gotten any pushback from people on particular episodes where, somebody because, it's natural to have trolls online, and that's going to happen anyway. But I would think, especially with what you were doing, you might be particularly susceptible to that, or maybe not. Have you had anyone kind of come at you and say, I really didn't like this episode, or I really didn't like you making light of this, or?
No, we haven't had anything like that yet. So, we feel pretty lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
I'm sure, as we continue to grow, that will become more of an issue.
Yeah.
That you're making it big enough, or bigger when you start getting haters. So hopefully that day comes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
everyone's been pretty supportive.
It's a good problem to have, because then you're really on a lot of people's radar when you've got haters. So
exactly.
The
one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Allyson.
I was going to say the one thing, we recently changed our theme song, and we did get some listeners, contacting us saying hey, what? You changed the music? That's not okay. So then we felt pretty good about that. We're well, at least they care. That's cool.
Right. No, that's cool. That's how you've got dedicated fans. That's awesome. Yeah. What's do you have a favorite of the 39 episodes so far? Do you have a personal favorite that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I think right now it always changes, of course, but episode 37, Cons and Crocs, is my favorite right now, because the comedian. So we typically have guests that are comedians, and that always adds just such a fun element.
Mm-hmm.
And the comedian in that episode, Amanda Arnold, she's just hilarious and so kind of unfiltered, and so it's such a fun episode. But we talk about a con man, and then a guy in Florida who, it's always Florida, of course, but a guy in Florida who jumps into a pond of crocodiles while wearing Crocs, and it's this whole thing. Anyway, it's just crazy.
What?
But I tend to really like the con man stories, just because they're so weird and creepy when, someone represents themselves one way and then turns out to just be completely different.
Right. Of course. I'm curious, though. So what, not to give too much away for people who are going to now want to listen to that episode, but is there something illegal about wearing Crocs in a pond of crocodiles in Florida?
No, but
okay.
I mean, I think it just added to the funniness of it. I mean, I just feel like Crocs are kind of a lot of people have different opinions, and usually strong ones, about Crocs.
Yes.
So, but anyway, so it was just a guy wearing those shoes, but he jumped into a pond of crocodiles, and then one other strange detail is he's trying to beat them away with an armadillo. So it just goes on and on.
Wow.
The weirdness of it, only in Florida.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Florida thing, because I don't know if you've ever well, actually, it's not even the same guys anymore, but are you familiar with the show Loveline?
Isn't it Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla? Wasn't that?
Yes, that's who it was back in the day, and I think the show still exists on terrestrial radio, but I think now it's Dr. Drew and somebody else. But yeah, the classic version of the show was Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, and
right.
And I used to listen to it sometimes. There was a station in this area that carried it, and they used to play a game on that show called Germany or Florida, where they would. They'd have these really bizarre news stories, and then callers would have to call in and guess, did this happen in Germany or in Florida? And it was just...
That is a hilarious game.
Yeah. I assume they retired it when Adam Carolla left the show, but yeah, that was, and of course, Florida Man, even just recently, has become kind of a meme online. Yeah, I've never been to Florida, but it sounds like a lot of terrible and strange things happen there. Have you been to Florida?
Only one time, and it was for a funeral. So
yeah.
we weren't really getting out to enjoy the scene. But I did actually. So we just recorded yesterday with a guest who told us that the reason that Florida has all these crazy stories isn't necessarily because they have this disproportionate amount of crazy stuff happening, but that their ability to get news is somewhat easier. Like there's looser rules around that somehow, or so the stories just get out more, I guess.
Oh, interesting. So maybe that's why we hear.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, maybe that's why we hear so much about Florida Man. Yeah,
right.
That's interesting. So, so you said that the Crocs one is your favorite. What's the strangest one? Is there one that's just so, again, not to give too much away because we don't want to spoil it for when people listen to it, but is there one that's just so bizarre that it just kind of tops the list for strangeness?
Yes. So I would say episodes 5 and 29. Those two are both about arsonists.
Okay.
And to me, arson, I don't know. I can wrap my brain around like heisting and robbery and even like, why people murder and that kind of thing. But arson is just, it's such a weird one because, sure, people like fire and that kind of thing, but there's always some like strange, usually like sexual element or something like that makes it just a really bizarre story with the arsonist.
Mm-hmm.
So, 5 and 29 are definitely weird ones to listen to, but entertaining for sure.
Yeah, cool. And you do now. What else do you do in comedy? Because you don't just do the podcast, right? You are you a comic, a stand-up comic, or what do you do?
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, like what's interesting about that is I had tried stand-up a while ago and kind of felt like, okay, this isn't the right time for me to do that. So I started doing improv. And so now I'm at a place with that where I want to pause on improv, and I'm starting to take a stand-up class in January.
Oh, okay.
So we'll going to try that again. I just feel like I'm sort of at a different place now where after doing the podcast and doing an improv, I'm like, okay, I could, get up there and get a set together and I think do a lot better now. So
that's interesting.
Give that a whirl.
So did you, have you done improv in front of audiences or just is this just something that you do within the class?
Yeah. So I'm in a course right now called Performance Mastery 2, and that's like the last one that they offer. So I've been doing it probably about a year now.
Yeah.
And we perform every class that we do. So, there's a student showcase kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
This class, we had a couple different performances. So, it's been a really exciting road. And I think as far as like being creative, all those things kind of feed each other,
Right,
so.
Right. No, it makes sense. And I would think too, see, from my perspective, I've always thought it would be cool to do stand-up comedy. And I think I could probably write some jokes and pull something together. But the thing that would terrify me, one of the things that would really terrify me about it is I've always thought it would be scary. What do you do if you have to deal with a heckler, or somebody who yells something out? But now that I'm thinking about it, you probably are, well prepared for that, having taken the improv class and now going back to getting into stand-up comedy, because I would think that having improv skills are what you really need to deal with a heckler. So you're probably in a good position as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what gave me the courage to go for it stand-up wise. And after doing improv, I'm like, oh, you just get to a point where you can use your brain and get out of that, scared brain. And then you're just having fun,
Yeah.
So it's like you really get to a point where you realize it's just a matter of time, like putting in enough performances where you're okay then,
Yeah. So doing improv enough, and I don't mean to be fixated on it, but I'm just kind of fascinated by it. I used to be a big fan of that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, and whatnot. I mean, is it over time, do you find, obviously you get over the fear of it, right? You become less intimidated by it. But do you also find that your brain, I don't know how else to put it, so I'll just say it in my own awkward way. Does your brain actually kind of get faster at it? Because that's the thing that would intimidate me about doing improv, is worrying that my brain just isn't going to be quick enough to think of things and keep it moving.
Right. Well, So that's kind of what they tell you. It's like you get into improv thinking, like, oh, I'm funny, or like, I was kind of a class clown. I should be good at this. This should be easy. And then you find out it's like this entire very structured kind of formulaic art, and I hadn't expected that. And so, like, it takes a lot of work and a lot of classes and a lot of just going through it to, like, learn how to do that. And really the whole thing that they teach you is just to completely be in the moment. Like, that whole, your brain will try to take it back and control it and write the script and pull it in a direction, the story. But what it comes down to is you just respond like the person you're being, and then they respond, and then you respond to that, and it just naturally goes somewhere,
Okay. And it's that yes and thing, right? Is that's real, right? That's
right.
Just not a cliche.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And do you find that, are those skills transferable in terms of the podcast? Because you mentioned, you're having comedians on and so forth. I mean, in terms of your interaction with them, do you feel that over the course of doing the podcast, you've been able to do better and just be funnier because of, learning to do improv? Has that helped you?
Oh, 100%. Because, like, one of the, key, like, foundational things of that is to listen and respond to exactly what's being said, and to just be really in the moment, and not to necessarily, like, take focus when and support your other person, like, yes and them, and to give focus when that's due. And that makes for just such a better podcast and better relationships, really, I think, in any relationship. But it's a lot more fun to listen to than just each person sort of throwing out one-liners,
Right. No, that makes sense. So now, as far as the stories that you're going to do on the show, do you, how far in advance do you go? Like, do you have a lot of them sort of in the queue that you're going to get to, or is it more sort of a week by week? You kind of look for things, or what's the process like as far as choosing what you're going to cover on the show?
Well, it's so funny because Hannah and I are really just such opposite personalities in that way, where she's a big planner and she has, and we don't tell each other ahead of time what our stories are. So as we listen, like, we're hearing each other's stories for the first time. So, but she has hers planned out usually, a week or two in advance. And I will literally be sitting there like the day of, sometimes to like the minute before, just finishing up mine. So, but it all works out.
Yeah. No, very good. Very good. And, do you have any plans to kind of expand with it as far as doing like a video version on YouTube or anything like that? Or are you going to keep it strictly audio, or, what are your plans for the show?
Well, to tell you the truth, like, our really sort of big picture plans would be, like, doing live show tours, because that's what excites us the most. So, there's the podcasts that are like, and That's Why We Drink, or Wine and Crime, and those guys that are similar to us that are touring. And so that would be super exciting for us to be able to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, no, you've got a great thing going. I'm confident that you'll get there, and I really enjoy it. And I want everyone to check it out. It's called Dumb and Busted, and it's awesome. And tell everybody where they can, it's pretty easy to find. If people Google it, they'll find it, but tell everybody some places where they can find it online.
Sure. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere that you get your podcasts. So if, whatever your podcatcher is, just look us up. We've never had anyone say that they couldn't find us. Our social media is at Dumb and Busted, spelled out, and that's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Who
came up with the name?
Hannah came up with the name. So she did the name and I did our tagline, and then we were like agonizing for so long, and finally she was like, that's it. I'm done finding names. Just how about Dumb and Busted? I was like, that's it. That's good.
It is a cool name. It's simple, so it's easy to remember, but it stands out. If you Google it, it comes right up. It doesn't, it's not competing with anything. out in out in the Google sphere, as it were. So, all right. Well, Allyson, this has been wonderful. I want to have you back in the future. We can chat some more, but I
would love that.
Absolutely. But this has been great. It's wonderful to talk to you. I became a fast fan of the show, and I'm sure some of our other listeners will check it out tonight. I encourage them to do so. It's a lot of fun to listen to. So, Allyson Koplin, thank you again, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. Have a good day.
You got it. Take care. Bye-bye.
IPMNation.com.